Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back to TFR for another edition of Investor Stories. On this segment, the experts talk about a startup that failed and the causes of that failure. Here's the segment called Post-Mortems. On today's special segment, we have Farooq Abbasi of Preface Ventures. Farooq, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
Sure, happily. And I'll try to make it generalizable as to not to give make anyone feel bad about it. But it was an enterprise infrastructure monitoring company that was kind of like Datadog, but even better than Datadog. And it was self-serve. And even one of the Datadog investors said that this company was a better product. Sometimes companies fail for reasons a little bit out of your control. And in this situation, there was a co-founder kind of personal issue. You got to remember, like humans, these people, these founders, these human beings that we partner with, they have personal lives, they have challenges, they have difficulties. And this guy specifically had some familial problems. He had some substance issues. And culturally, that just made the company much more tough to work with. And they had to promote someone to founder status. And it's one of those situations where you'd still flip the coin 100 times and be right. But unfortunately, and I wish this individual well, just didn't end up kind of meeting the potential that he or she could have. It's a heavy one.
It's unfortunate. No, it's a good. Yeah. I mean, it's real, right? Sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah, completely.
On today's special segment, we have Findley of Iron Spring Ventures. Ty, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
These are always tough because there's never enough context given on a short soundbite to how this went down or why it went down. One that I thought had a lot of potential, but maybe fits in this category of just getting out of the gate a little too fast and maybe too early is the same as wrong would be Airware. We invested in Airware when I was at GE Ventures, and Airware's whole proposition was using drones for aerial surveillance and analysis analytics on industrial job sites, broadly defined. And so I think the thesis there is still 100% spot on. They had some of the best technology, even some helping drones be able to navigate autonomously around each other. And at the end of the day, again, it comes back to what are pretty brutal realities for go-to-market in an industrial environment. And I think that's just where, again, hopefully we're realizing that maybe since 2015, a lot of venture capital has come into the industrial end markets, looking at the manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, construction ecosystem as massive TAMs. But that venture wave, I think, is now starting to self-right or maybe sober a little bit about just how fast you can scale. It's not like the other end markets in venture. And so, nothing about other than some great people at that company with some amazing technology. But there is a lesson to say around too early can be the same as wrong, especially in these industrial markets.
On today's special segment, we have LowTony of Plexo Capital. Low, can you tell us a story about a situation that didn't work out, either with a startup or a fund manager, and why that didn't work out well?
Yeah, I'll go all the way back to an investment that I made as an individual. My good friend turned me on to a company that was I don't want to give the name of the company, but they were doing something very innovative. And it was too early. The market was too early. I think ultimately still early, and this was a decade ago. So, it's really hard to be able to time these things, just like you can't time the stock market. Sometimes you can't time this technology. It's really more about understanding what are the risks associated with an investment. And in this case, I was green and didn't really think through all the risks that were present. And in particular, the limitations of the technology and what advancements were actually going to be necessary to make this investment take off. So I think, that's something to add to the diligence process, right? Is like, what are the dependencies on the technology, or flip it over on its head and say, are there new technologies that have come into place that are now going to facilitate the ability to provide a service or allow a service to take off that wasn't in place before? So that's one of my biggest learning in terms of the diligence process is, what are the limitations of the current technical infrastructure that's necessary to facilitate this company's success? What does success look like if everything goes right? And then again, flipping it on its head, are there technology advancements that are going to allow new businesses to flourish and develop?
On today's special segment, we have Monique Woodard of Cake Ventures. Monique, can you tell us a story about a company that you've invested in that failed and why it failed?
Yeah. So I invested in a consumer-focused apparel company, e-commerce, and they failed. And I think sometimes failures, especially companies that have failed in the last year or so, one of the knee-jerk reactions as both a founder and an investor could be to blame it on COVID, right? And blame it on the pandemic. And you could say, look, people were not buying clothing, and they were not buying fashion, and they were wearing sweatpants all day, right? But I think you also have to have some intellectual honesty and see that there were a ton of fashion brands and fashion focused companies that have thrived even throughout the pandemic, right? And I think for this company in particular, one brand, it was very obvious that brand was important. And I think that there wasn't enough time spent building a foundational brand in this category. And I also think that we didn't figure out what exactly the customer wanted versus what she told us she wanted. And the things that customers, I'm a big believer in talking to customers a lot, but you have to also understand that customers aren't always telling you, not that they're lying to you, but they aren't always telling you the truth with their mouths. They're telling you the truth with their dollars. And we could never get to what the truth was about that customer and why they would not buy, why they expressed interest, but then could not get to the final purchase point. And I think that, and I say we, because I really think of this failure as not just, I'm not going to lay this on the founder's shoulders. We failed, right? And we looked for, many different options, and we tried, many different flavors of this business, and nothing ever quite came together. Nothing ever quite gelled. And, ultimately the founders made the decision to stop, and they still had money in the bank and return the capital to their investors. And I think they'll go on to, build a great company doing something else. But for this one moment in time, that wasn't the thing. And so I think that what I would tell people, both investors and founders who have companies that failed, and they failed in the last year or so. So during the pandemic, during COVID, I think that I would encourage you to go one step deeper than, it was COVID or it was a pandemic, and exercise some intellectual honesty with yourself when you're doing the postmortem and really trying to understand what didn't work, and taking that step to go 2 levels deeper can really expose some things about the readiness of the market, or why you built something that didn't really speak to consumers or didn't really speak to your customer or the audience. And I think that is really where you can end up getting some real insight that you can use later.
Love it. That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.